You are listening to the Outside the Boards podcast. I'm Danny O'Leary. For most of my professional career, I have worked in mainstream sports for some of the world's leading sports organizations and properties and blue chip brands, helping to create award-winning omni-channel marketing campaigns, result-driven sales strategies, and impactful brand building initiatives. But all that work doesn't compare to the fun, excitement, and challenges I've been fortunate to experience working for the king of all sports, polo. For nearly a decade, I've put my heart and ambition into helping advance the sport of polo. I've made lifelong friendships, met some incredible people, traveled to memorable polo destinations, and heard the craziest stories. My goal is to share these people, places, and stories with you and provide a unique behind-the-scenes perspective of the game that breaks all the common stereotypes, all while discussing key issues affecting the sport today and the constructive sharing of ideas, insights, solutions, and best case studies for the purpose of advancing polo globally. Every week, I will have honest conversations with polo industry leaders, enthusiasts, and awe-inspiring people who make this sport great and fun to be around. I hope through their knowledge and their unique perspectives, they will motivate and inspire you. Together, we will explore ways you can make small tweaks to boost your polo business, whether you are a club, event, team, or player, that will amount to big changes in revenue, participation, attendance, and exposure. Saddle up. Welcome to Outside the Boards with me, Danny O'Leary. Danny O'Leary here, and welcome to Season 4 of the Outside the Boards podcast. On this episode of Outside the Boards, I am thrilled to welcome award-winning breeder Beth Skolnik. Beth Skolnik, a key figure in polo breeding, has spent over 30 years shaping the success of Isinya Horse Development Corporation. Raised in Los Angeles, Skolnik's polo journey began at Will Rogers Polo Club, and her passion for green horses led her to work for Kerry Packer in Australia. In 1992, she joined forces with Owen Rinehart to establish I-sinya HDC in Aiken, South Carolina, dedicated to thoroughbred polo breeding. Isinya HDC, named A Place of Sand in Maasai, focuses on breeding specifically for polo, a patient process championed by Skolnik. The facility's reputation among high goal players and teams like Valiente attests to its commitment to excellence. Recognized as the best breeder of the year in 2009, Isinya's motto, "Breed to the best and expect the best," reflects their dedication to producing top-tier polo ponies. Skolnik emphasizes breeding 100% for polo, ensuring the horses understand the nuances of the game. Isinya's offers various breeding options, including ship semen and embryo transfer, catering to the needs of high goal players. Skolnik's hands-on approach includes early human contact for fowls, fostering comfort and attention, setting a foundation for successful training. Beyond high goal tournaments, Isinya caters to low goal owners, encouraging responsible breeding to pass exceptional traits to the next generation. Skolnik's expertise extends to stallion selection, emphasizing the importance of seeking opinions from those who have bred to a particular stallion. Isinya HDC, blending Argentina and American bloodlines, has produced notable champions, showcasing Skolnik's dedication to excellence in polo breeding. Beth Skolnik's enduring commitment to patience, expertise, and a deep understanding of polo breeding has established Isinya HDC as a standard bearer in the competitive world of polo. So without further ado, let's welcome Beth Skolnik. Enjoy! Beth Skolnik, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. And you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a little dull and rainy here in the Midwest here in Chicago. I don't know what it's like down in your neck of the woods.
We are expected, I think, 3 days of rain, but
Ugh.
we're the South, so it's not too bad yet. No snow yet.
We had our first snowfall over Thanksgiving weekend and built our first snowman. Good packing snow too. It was unexpected because it's like this is way too early for any sort of snowfall to be in November. So
Yeah.
I don't.
I think anybody who doesn't get snow on a regular basis is like, oh, wow, you got snow. I wish we had some. And
Yeah, this is abnormal. Like this start like last year. I don't think it started to snow for us until January. Really,
oh,
really mild winter
yeah,
for the most part. No snow at all, which made the growing season come a little bit early, which was always nice.
that
Um,
is definitely nice.
but March is the most unpredictable month, I think, up here in the Midwest. It could be deathly freezing, or you might have an early onset of spring, and you'll have for a fun St. Patrick's Day.
I think here, January through December, it's unexpected, unpredictable. You never know whether you can have 80 days and 30 nights, but we are fairly mild year round, which what makes South Carolina so nice to
Hmm.
do horses, to work and train horses and everything, because we can go year round, which is really nice.
Yeah. Now, what town in South Carolina are you in?
We are in Aiken, South Carolina.
I love the Carolinas. Carolinas in Georgia. Been to North Carolina and the college basketball mecca around that area with Chapel Hill.
Right.
Duke, not that far by. You got Temple, I think, right there. Or who is it? There's like four or five
We've,
colleges.
yeah, Clemson is a big one, and UGA, and you always have people with their flags on their vehicles, supporting their universities. So we're neutral. We're going to stay neutral, here. So
Is there more Tigers than Bulldog affiliation down there or no?
I refuse to comment.
You refuse to take sides?
I refuse. Yeah, it's like they take it seriously. They are they take it very seriously around here, and it's like I love everybody. So
It's great college football country down there. I have a
yeah,
nephew that went to Clemson. I've been to a game. I've also been to a Bulldogs game, and it's fantastic. I love the culture down there.
yeah, it is very spirited and team oriented. And
You didn't grow up in Aiken, did you?
I grew up in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Oh my gosh, west to east, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Anywhere specifically in Los Angeles or right in the heart of the city?
No, definitely not in the city. Kind of Santa Monica and Bel Air and Marina Del Rey and those areas. Started polo at Will Rogers, which is in the Pacific Palisades.
Got it. Okay.
That was a great, great, great little club.
Is family still out there on the West Coast? Do you have siblings?
No, I have no family out there, just have friends that I like to go visit. Doesn't matter how long you're away from it, it's home. And could never live there again because I'm just a country girl now. But it is so nice to go home. It really is. And try and get there maybe at once a year at least.
Yeah. Did you go to school out there on the West Coast?
Yeah, well, did a couple years of college and then the polo bug took over.
Yeah. Where was college at?
Yes. It was Santa Monica. Yeah,
Okay.
I was putting myself through college and got hooked on the polo, and it was like, how do I do this, equally instead
Yeah.
of just concentrating on college, which I should have done. But no, I was definitely like, okay, I can do school in between, go to the barn, go to school, go back to the barn, do night polo and that. So it fed my addiction of polo. So
Now, when did your polo addiction hit? Was it during college and that's where it became problematic, or was it much earlier?
it was my last year of high school.
Oh, okay. All right.
My mother was dating and living with a stockbroker whose partner's brother was the owners of the Triple Crown winner Affirmed. And at the time he was dating her, just dating her, he was going to the Belmont to watch a firm run and, the Kentucky Derby and then the Belmont. And I was like, wow, this horse racing stuff is really neat. I want to work at the racetrack. And my mother was like, oh, no, 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 no.
Wait, but did you have any horse related experience before that or no?
Not really, just a little like livery, stable riding and just a passion for animals in general. So her boyfriend, he said, try Will Rogers. I know a guy up there who does polo and they have polo horses up there. And so I went and they kind of looked at me and said, I don't know what we're going to do with you, but if you want to learn, then come on over.
I don't know what we're gonna do with you.
They literally did. You don't know how to ride, you don't know anything about horses, but
But you can work in the stalls. You can
yeah,
start off by shoveling horse shit for the first
yeah.
part. Yeah.
And they just, I was gung ho and after school run up to Will Rogers and like, what can I do? What can I do? And yeah, so I just put myself into it and just said, I'm here. Oops.
And then you went to Santa Monica, and we learned very quickly that your studies were getting in the way of your polo education.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's it was like during class, I had an anatomy class and we were dissecting humans. And I was like, I wonder when we're going to be done so I can get back to the barn. I've got a couple to ride and then I've got to, and you're like,
Wait, hold
okay,
on. You're dissecting humans. Were you in med school?
no, I don't know why they allowed us, but my beginning anatomy class was they had cadavers in there and we were going through it and I was hoping to do like a pre-vet studies at Santa Monica and go from there and see if I was serious about becoming a vet or whether I could even do it. So, yeah.
I don't mean to put you on the spot,
Oh.
but what time period was this? Because
Oh,
I feel like
you are putting me on the spot. Let's see. This was in the 80s, later mid 80s.
my goodness gracious. I almost wonder, like, do they still allow dissecting of like fetal pigs and frogs in high school nowadays? Here you are working on cadavers in undergrad.
Yeah, I know. And it surprised me. I never expected that. And we walked into class one day and they had all the windows blocked off so people couldn't go by and just peer in. And the first day they had hands and feet all around the room. And I was like, this is creepy. And then our second day they brought in the cadavers and yeah, I was surprised, but I was like, okay, let's get into this. So
So you had aspirations then, medical or veterinarian school then. I think that is that what you just said?
yeah, I was, my love for animals. I was testing the waters to see whether I could do it, as I am hesitant to say, commit to it. My mother was an RN and my father was a pharmacist, so it kind of was in the blood to work in the medical field.
Hmm.
So
So, when you went to Will Rogers, I mean, Will Rogers is not what it used to be these days now, is it?
I haven't been back in quite a few years. I know they're still going, and I can't say because I really haven't been back in a
Hmm.
long, long time. But we used to have fun as grooms because the players were always like, "Oh, another person, come out and stick a ball with us or do something." It was just always another person, and it was a lot of fun. And I say that because I have fond memories of Fourth of July going up to Inspiration Point on the horses. We'd ride up bareback and take a bottle of champagne and watch all the fireworks from downtown, from Marina Del Rey and Santa Monica, and you could see everything, from the top of Inspiration Point. So we'd go up Fourth of July, watch all the fireworks, and then, as I might get in trouble for saying this, then we'd head down to the polo field and tear around the polo field and in the middle of the night, We're on horseback going, okay, find your way home. Just we let the horses kind of find the way home. But
You may have just described probably one of the most incredible date nights. And that's putting all the men on the spot. If you really want to impress your girl, wife,
yeah,
fiance, get on a
yeah.
horse, go up to Inspiration Point,
Yeah.
watch some fireworks, bring a bottle of champagne. Damn, that's the cowboy life right there.
Yeah, you get
Yeah.
fireworks from all around too. It's not just like going down to Santa Monica watching it go off of the pier. You get to see it everywhere. It's a beautiful spot.
Now, how much time though did you have to spend doing the grunt work ultimately before you were sticking balling?
Oh, not that long. My first job, they put me with a guy named Ted Turner. It was not quite the Ted Turner, but it was my first job. I worked for him for a month and kind of learned to ride like through him. He was a lot older and he had some very nice, easy horses. So I learned to ride through that. And then my second job, after a month, unfortunately, he passed away and I had to find another job, was with a cameraman for the Dan Rather show. And he would do all the really dangerous assignments. And he would say, well, I'm going to be gone for a while, so just stick and ball or do whatever. So he let me stick and ball. He encouraged me to go to college too. He was nice enough to help me through my first couple of years of college, and he let me stick and ball, and he let me show his polo horses and little schooling shows and stuff. And at the end of that first year, we had a grooms tournament, and he groomed for me and gave me the horses to play. And so it was only a couple months before I got the bug, the actual polo bug, not just the riding, but the polo bug.
You couldn't ask for a more perfect scenario, just to, the owner of some ponies taking you under your belt and,
Yeah.
hey, I don't have time to do it, but, if you do, please do what you can to keep my horses healthy and in shape and trained. And
Yeah.
yeah,
He was a great guy. He encouraged me all the time. You're doing great. Here, let's go stick and ball, or just take him out and stick and ball, do whatever. And wonderful person to work for.
I remember I had conversations with Jeff Hall and Brandon Phillips, and they had similar stories, like the most perfect scenario you could ever think of
Yeah.
when getting into the game to develop your own skills, by
Yeah. Well,
just, patrons kind of taking you under their belt and you're working with the best of the best. Yeah.
yeah. And it's why people like us just get the bug. They're encouraging, they're helpful. There's not the criticism unless it's constructive. So you just like, oh, well, I can do this. So if I can ride, I can stick a ball. If I can stick a ball, I can play. If I can play, I
Yeah.
can, kind of snowballs from there.
How long were you at Will Rogers for?
About 2 years, a little bit more. And then I went over to Burbank. So I do a little bit at Will Rogers. And then I went over to Burbank and to the Equestrian Center over there and started working for Joe Henderson and Dory Forsman, and then doing the pro polo at night. So it was very long hours. But again, if anybody is addicted to polo, they're like, who cares? You know?
And what were you doing at that point? I mean, were you just still kind of just caring for the horses, working around the barn?
Yeah, the pro polo, they needed somebody they had a whole string, and so they needed somebody or a couple of us to work with the horses and maybe go stick and ball one or two. And Dory was very encouraging, and Joe too, of like, oh, here's a young horse, you want to mess with it. And I was like, oh, well, of course. Like I said, it's the snowball effect of one thing leads to another. And it's like, okay, I'm playing, now what? Okay, tournament, yeah, okay, now what? So she encouraged me to do the young horses, and that's when I kind of got really hooked on polo too.
So you were kind of dropped into the mix in terms of not just caring for the polo ponies, but also kind of just getting looped into the training of them too, huh?
Yeah, and I had some friends who were show jumping, and they kind of showed me their side of the world besides the polo side. So
Hmm.
would try and incorporate the training, into them. And there was only a couple horses here and there, but it was still like, okay, I saw this person do this with their show horse and it really helped. So let's see if I can do that without interfering with the horse's mouth or the natural carriage of the head carriage and stuff.
What would you say? And I ask this question to everyone who's been on the show. And I'm just always curious because some people, the answers are usually the same, but some people have some different ones. But what was it about polo in comparison to other equestrian sports that really drew you? We established it's the horse, okay, but
Yeah.
take it one step further. Why polo? Don't be afraid to dish or to smack down the other
No,
equestrian
I'm
disciplines.
not.
People always do.
It's like which thing? It's like the speed, the camaraderie with your teammates, the constant knowledge to improve yourself. You improve your riding, you improve your hitting, you improve, you've got your neck shot, your near side shot, your back shot, your, offside shots, everything you never ever reach that top of the peak. You never are there. You can always improve somehow. So it was like, okay, I can hit it better. I can go faster and hit it better. I can hit it faster, better to my teammate. And so it's always a challenge. It's a constant challenge, and it's great to have teammates out there, which is how I started is a bunch of us grooms just going out there and just laughing till you fell off and having a great time. And it's such a team sport that it's fun, at least it should be fun, making it fun.
Before we dive back in today's buzzing conversation, we would like to give a special shout out to this season's Outside the Boards podcast extraordinary presenting sponsor, Hive 2.0, the pioneers of hard honey, where passion meets palate. Hive 2.0 is not just a beverage, it's a commitment to the greater good. With over 30 years of perfecting ready-to-drink flavor profiles, Hive 2.0 introduces you to hard honey. It's more than just a drink. It's an experience crafted by a dedicated in-house team, including their beekeeper, formulator, and full-cycle production squad. They move hives, protect queens, and manage honey production, all to make a difference with hard honey. Why choose Hive 2.0? Because when it comes to taste, there's nothing like it. Each can is carefully crafted, palate-forward experience with a unique story behind every batch. Lightly carbonated for a subtle effervescence, it's a journey from the first sip to the last. Hive 2.0 uses honey, a natural sweetener rich in antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. Unlike refined sugar, honey has a lower glycemic index, providing a slow rise in blood sugar levels. From their hard honey to alcohol-free refreshments, each Hive 2.0 flavor tells a unique tale, from historic Egyptian times to the modern porch-pounding experiences. Whether you're sipping an Atomic Berry's tropical tartness or savoring the nostalgic taste of PB&J, Hive 2.0 has something for every palate. So join us in raising a can to Hive 2.0, a salute to taste, innovation, and the bees. Thank you, Hive 2.0, for sweetening our lives. Listen to the end of this podcast to be awarded with a special discount code when purchasing Hive 2.0 online at www.hardhoney.com. And now, back to the interview. Stay tuned, stay refreshed, and stay curious. Now, did you play team sports growing up as a kid?
Not really. I did gymnastics, but I was always such a tomboy. I always liked playing baseball and tag football and stuff like that. So I
So
never
you're a little
did.
bit of adrenaline junkie,
Oh
which
yeah,
every polo player has. There's something
yeah,
wrong with them. Yeah.
yeah. I am definitely an adrenaline junkie. That's what keeps me going. I mean, I you so hit it on the head, nail on the head. Yeah.
It's funny because, like, I tell people, I'm like, polo players have a bit of a screw loose. And I tell people, the people who do like Ironman, that's just dumb. Who does
Yeah.
that? That's just crazy. Polo players are kind of the same way. And
Yeah.
as you get better and you work your way up the totem pole and get better and better and better, they're crazy up there.
Yeah.
They're just so wired different.
Yeah.
But again, once you get that adrenaline and those endorphins or whatever you want to call it pumped into your blood system, you just constantly want it back over and over and over again. It's a drug.
Yeah.
You mentioned two things that I've heard from people, and I think one of them goes back to, I think, my first season. I'm trying to think of who it was. I don't know if it was Jared Zunny or Hazel Jackson. I'm trying to think. I know it was a player, or maybe it was Jeff Hall. You could be a 10 goaler at the end of the day, and you will never be perfect at your sport. You always have to work so hard, and there's always gaps in people's games. And if you're trying to solve the gap of one thing, the other side of your game is going to falter. Like, people have to continuously work over and over and over to keep their game top level versus maybe other sports that are out there. Polo is just completely different. And then maybe that has to do with the fact that you're on multiple horses and you don't know how horses are going to react or things like that.
Exactly.
What the game does to your body physically. But you said also another important thing, which echoes over and over and over again, is that people are so attracted to the community and the camaraderie with the sport. And that is, you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the things that drew me to it. Win or lose after a game, everyone's sharing a cerveza and having an asado with each other, whether it be at the apex of the game or if it's on the amateur side, there's this social community that is really hard to beat.
Yeah.
And it's not this glitzy champagne where you're dressed up in seersucker after a match. No, you're in your whites covered with grass stain and sweating from head to toe. You haven't taken a shower, but a beer
Nobody
tastes way
cares. Yeah.
better. Yeah, and some cooked barbecue beef. I mean, you're set. I mean, there's an
Yeah.
element of college football.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, the tailgating outside all that,
Yes.
Clemson Bulldogs. Bulldogs have an
Yeah.
incredible tailgate atmosphere. But there is that element to it, which is incredibly attractive. So then, okay, so going back to your polo career. So you're at Burbank. What comes after Burbank?
I went up to Sun Valley with Barbie McQueen, who was Steve McQueen's widow. And
I love all these name dropping, by the way.
no, that's it's
It's like,
'cause,
whoa,
a
Steve
lot of these,
McQueen was involved in polo? No one ever knew that. No, it
yeah,
was.
it was his widow, and she was like, oh my gosh, she was an amazing person. Another person who taught me to have fun, and we were way out in Sun Valley, just the very end before the hills, the mountains, and had to work the horses, had to cross a highway with a set of horses to go work the horses up in the mountains where we'd come across a bear or an elk, or I mean, just it was like, oh gosh, what are we gonna hit around the next corner? And oh, we have to jump a stream to continue working up the hill. And she would call and go, Beth, it's 12 o'clock, and it's just too early for me to be drinking alone. And so you better come in and have a drink with me. And I'm like, okay. Or she would, we need to have a party. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. And she's like, let's make a Christmas party. I'm like, it's July, but that's good. Yeah. She's like, yeah, let's have Christmas in July. So she made it so much fun. It was again, you do anything for polo. I was mounting her and myself for games. We had no other help. And it was just play a chucker with her or, playing in a tournament, but play the chucker, get back to the trailer before she did, strip my horse, get her on her horse, strip that horse, and jump on my next horse and out for the next chucker. So you do anything for polo, when you're an addict like us, and so it was like okay, and by the end of the game, I would be absolutely exhausted, but I was like, that was great, I got to play and.
So you're not only are you carrying training polo ponies, but you're playing as well. So at this time, like what handicap were you? And also, did you have any aspirations to really develop your game?
Not really. I was just having fun. And because the horses and the polo were so new, I never had any goals of what I was doing. I never thought, oh, I got to do this, and one day I need to do this. And I am a person who more or less like, let's see what happens.
Hmm.
Let's go with this and just see where it takes us. And I definitely recommend to everybody who's starting out to go do the circuits and have a good time. And it was, Sun Valley, Jackson Hole, Spokane, and, a group of us would go and there'd be, three, four trailers on the road at one time, all following each other and off to the next city and off to the next barbecue. And let's see what this town has got to offer us. And it was whitewater rafting and horseback riding up the mountains and a lot of asadas, having a great time and a great summer.
So you've been all around the US, if not the world, huh?
Yeah, I've been to a few places and I have yet to really find a city that I didn't like. Every place has been fun. Florida, Wellington, needless to say, is very intense, but the polo is just amazing. The horses are amazing. The players are great. And yeah, had some tours around, worked in England, worked in Australia, and settled in South Carolina.
Is there any one place that you've been to that really, really stands out, whether it be the people, the polo culture, or just the picturesque setting, if you will?
Sun Valley. Yeah.
Sun
Sun
Valley.
Valley just stole my heart too. It was But it is one of the most beautiful places in the US. So I love it.
Now, at what point did you get involved in breeding?
I saw a bit of an interest. I was working in Australia at Ellerston for Kerry Packer, and
Wow, we
he
just jumped
was,
from the US,
yeah,
like
we
Sun
did.
Valley, to Australia. Okay, now we're halfway around the world.
I spent a couple summers. I worked for Hector Galindo. Spent a couple summers in England, and then from England, it led me to Australia. And Kerry Packer was doing embryo transfers, and there was a really nice girl who was doing the breeding part, or they were a little bit of like, okay, do the breeding, do the embryos, and then let the mares kind of fall out in the pasture. But I was like, wow, that's really neat. And I was doing lot of green horse work at Elliston, doing babies. And I hadn't broken in at that point until then. And I'll never forget, we got some babies in to break in. And there was one really crazy one. I said, if I do the crazy one, I don't have to do the rest, right? And their round pen was right outside their coffee room. And so I remember getting on that baby, and nobody wanted to be rude, but everybody wanted to see whether I was going to die or not. So all I saw was all these faces in the window, like 3 layers high of everybody watching, just going, she's going to die. She's going to die. And we're just going to watch the carnage. And so I got on this baby, and it just bucked from one side of the round pen to the other, and I stayed on. I'm like, I think that was considered breaking in, know.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of that there, and it was amazing to take the horses up the mountains and go muster the cows and run into herds of kangaroo coming over the hill on horses that were straight from the racetrack also. And that was, again, adrenaline, huge adrenaline
I never knew
rush.
that there were herds of kangaroo.
There are herds, okay. I think the funniest one, we'd gotten a few horses straight off the racetrack, and they don't know how to go up and down these mountains. It's very, very steep there. And I was on one that was just super dumb, and I was hanging back with somebody, and the guys are like, "Oh, let's go just chase all these kangaroos." And they're like, "Oh, great. Okay, well, you guys go ahead," because my horses are absolutely freaking out over these funny looking animals that are bouncing around. So they go up the hill, over the hill. I'm like, hanging onto the saddles, the horse just losing it. And I look up, and somehow or another, and I don't know the proper word, herd of kangaroo came up over the mountain back toward us. And again, I'm going, oh God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And they just went right past us. And then the horse I was on was so stunned, it just sat there and was just shaking. It was just like, oh my God. So
What kind of horses were you breeding in Australia for polo?
in Australia, Packer was breeding his polo horses. He had his own stallion, and he was trying to do embryos with his polo horses. So
Okay.
we also would go to the racetracks, to the sales, and go through and try and pick out horses that were very typey and had, the stallions had a history of making fair good polo horses.
Mhm.
So we were doing both because they weren't doing a whole lot of breeding, but we were doing both, and so we were, trying to just go to the racetrack, never have a chance to sit on them, but just go, oh, this stallion's thrown some nice horses and for polo, and this one looks really typey, and we'd be able to pick them up fairly cheap and bring them back and hope they would make polo horses.
Mhm. So now you've gone all over the world too. So you said London and Australia. Anywhere else?
Those are the only two places really working. But from there, vacationing around, you're like, well, it was the end of the season in England. So, let's just jump on a plane and go to Greece and go island hopping with some girls that had worked in England, and Australia, just kind of go to Tahiti. We had the choice of the Great Barrier Reef or Tahiti, and it was less expensive to go to Tahiti and do a club med than it was to go up to the Great Barrier Reef.
But not polo vacationing. Was there any polo vacationing mixed
No,
in? Okay.
no, that was it. But yeah, the polo, we got to travel a little bit for the polo with Packers, just kind of around the areas doing the local tournaments and stuff. And that was really nice.
Hmm. How did you get mixed up with the Rineharts?
So my ex-husband used to work for Tommy Wayman, and he had met Owen out in Argentina, and we left Australia and went back to the United States and heard he was looking for somebody. So we called him up and he said, "Yeah, sounds great." And yeah, I've been with him ever since. 31 years.
31
So
years.
31
Oh my
years, yeah.
gosh. Now, when you
Yeah.
started with them, were you tasked with breeding or, was it some other role?
No, it was mainly doing his high goal string. We had a handful of young horses that, again, it was great time in Virginia. He's from Virginia, Charlottesville area, and we would go and play some polo there and go on what they called the walk and talks, which is a nice version of the hunt people during the off season just to get their horses out and about instead of actually fox hunting. They would just kind of literally go on these walk and talks and have a nice time and just go trailblazing in some instances. Otherwise, just go all over the countryside. So we would have a great time and do some green horses like that and just try not to embarrass ourselves in Virginia at the polo club there, because
Hmm.
the horses were very green. So we kind of started with that, and then when it came time to helping Owen, he was always in England at the time, and so when it came time to coming back, it would be doing his high goal string. So we were incorporating the green horses into like for Florida season into the 20 goal, and then the 26 goal the next year, and so on and so forth. And
How many horses was that?
at the time, I think we only had like 20 some horses, like 26 or so, between the green horses and everything. And it quickly started multiplying. It was Owen's wife who really is into the breeding and who doesn't like a cute little foal running
Yeah.
around the property,
Hmm.
So she was like, yeah. And that's what got him started. He used to get a lot of his ex racehorses from his brother-in-law, Nick Rennekamp. And Nick has an incredible eye for picking out a good horse off the racetrack or in his, a lot of cases out in somebody's pasture. And he would supply Owen with the green horses and stuff like that. And then when his wife started breeding, it was breeding his best horses to stallions. So that's what got him started. It was at the beginning, it was just like, oh, let's just do a couple. And like everything else with polo, you can't just kind of go in half. You have to
Yeah.
jump in both feet. Let's not do two, let's do 20.
How big is the operation now?
People kind of ask me sometimes, it's like, well, how many do you do a year? And I'm like, which year? Owen himself has quit breeding, but we have other people's horses here that they breed, they leave here to be bred, to fall out, to break in, to start for polo. And it will be anywhere, from 5 to 25. So each year, we never really know. It's really hard to accommodate people when you're set up for 5, 6 mares foaling at a time, and then all of a sudden you have a bombardment of people who decide to breed. But we always try and accommodate people as best we can.
Potentially, what could be your capacity there?
It's 25. It was a bit much at a time. 25 babies, is too
Yeah.
much. We have over 100 on the property now. And our biggest holdup is that we're getting so many stallions now. I think we have 13 stallions here. And each stallion, well, we have a couple that can live with other horses, but each stallion needs his own paddock.
Hmm.
So that takes away from really how many horses we can accommodate at one time.
I see. And just for the non-educated person, why is that? Why does a stallion need its own paddock?
They will fight. They will. There's no doubt. We always say if a stallion gets loose, if somebody gets dumped riding one of the stallions, you don't worry. We don't even worry about where the mares are because they're going straight to another stallion to fight. And they, in their own mind, already have the stallion picked out.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, that one trash talked me last time I was riding by it. I will show him." And they do not forget. And I always say, if it's a stallion in polo, it's smart because it's figured out how to stay a stallion. It's figured out that if I'm chill, if I cooperate, if I learn the rules, then they're not going to castrate me.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a smart horse that is a stallion in polo.
So you're breeding stallions. Are you breeding thoroughbreds? You mentioned Reinhardt's, what is it, his brother, you said?
His brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law,
Yeah, his
yes.
brother-in-law, Nick Rennekamp. Right now, all we have here are polo stallions.
Mm-hmm.
So Valiente breeds with us, and we have a couple of their stallions, plus a lot of their stallions semen frozen with our local vet. We had Delfino Popular here for years, who I miss greatly. He went home to Argentina this year. He was my little black tank who had his emotional sheep, the emotional support sheep living with him.
Yeah.
It's just hysterical. He loved his sheep and his sheep loved him, and they lived happily together. It was great because Sapo contacted Owen about sending Popular here, and he said he has his sheep with him. So Owen's like, that's okay. He's having his own paddock. We can deal with that. So he and his sheep came, and they, sent a long list of things like you can't do this with him. He's got to be in the trailer only with his sheep and no other horses and everything. And don't tie him up. And so his adorable little black sheep came with him, and she followed him everywhere, on, off the trailer, everything. And about a week after she got here, I tried to get hold of Sapo, and I was like, "Is there any chance she could be pregnant?" And I got no response, and so I'm like, "I don't know." She's has this big old udder, and she didn't have it the week that she got here. So I built her a pen inside of his paddock because I didn't know what he would do, smelling the placenta and the blood and everything from this baby. So
Mm-hmm.
built a pen, put her in there, and came up in the morning, and there was two little black sheep with her. So I sent a picture and said, Popular's a father.
Yeah.
And he has a happy little family, and I want to do DNA testing to see who the real father is, whether it was him or not.
Yeah.
But he had his happy little family, and then I didn't realize that how quickly the boys mature and the girls mature in sheep because I've never dealt with sheep, and the brother got the mother and sister pregnant, and so down in Florida they had more little sheep, and they kind of contacted me and they're like, "Quit making sheep."
Yeah.
Because they were here, but I had nothing to do with it. They did it all on their own. Even though Popular left, I have two of his emotional support sheep here, ready for any other stallion that needs it.
In 2012, the founders of Outside the Boards witnessed their first polo match and were stunned by the sport's beauty and brutality. Few sports, if any, have these combined qualities. The sport's grace, intensity, and warlike imagery create a shock and awe viewing experience like none other. Combine this with the sport's party-like atmosphere and lifestyle, and you have a recipe for success. Today, the sport has yet to witness its full potential. The industry is fragmented, riddled with politics and inexperience. Outside the Boards was purposely designed to change all that and bring clarity to the sport by introducing best practices, insights, trends, and consulting services to industry stakeholders and interested brands so that they can reach their marketing potential and better navigate the sport. Whether you're a club seeking custom sponsorship and marketing solutions or simply looking for strategic advice, we encourage you to contact us today or subscribe to gain access to industry insights. Visit us at www.outsidetheboards.com or to learn more or email us at info@outsidetheboards.com.
Now, at any time during this, did you go back to school at all? Was there any education when it came to understanding the whole breeding aspect of it? I feel like there's a lot to learn medically.
There is a lot to learn. No, never went back to school. Just tried to learn as I went along, and I'm a huge person for asking questions. My vets go absolutely crazy because I'm constantly, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Why? Not that I'm questioning them, but I want to learn. And they run blood. They're like, okay, everything looks normal. I said, no, I want numbers. I want to start understanding what numbers to look for like in the white count or red blood cells or whatever, just to understand for myself and what to look out for, what makes a sick horse and what's normal and what's supposed to be normal but really isn't normal.
Hmm.
So it's just started doing a lot of my own research and reading and asking hundreds and hundreds of questions, which I apologize to every vet that I drove crazy by asking questions. But it's really the only way you can learn if you don't go back to school.
Genealogy speaking, what differentiates a polo pony from, let's say, a racehorse?
So all I can say is we've had both. We've had some horses off the racetrack here, and the babies were bred to racehorse stallions way at the beginning. And I would watch those foals compared to the polo horses, and those foals would just do laps around the field, where the polo horses would just be working themselves along the fence line. They'd be short working themselves from the day they were born. And a thoroughbred is a thoroughbred. It's just a polo horse has the desire to not just run, but be athletic and get back and short work itself and everything too. And seeing generation, just like any other sport, like cutting or roping, you breed to the horse that loves the sport, or you should be breeding to the horse that loves the sport, that understands the sport. And we definitely see it in the stallions that have generations of polo horse breeding in their line. And
Hmm.
those horses, the first time you go stick 'em ball, they are right after the polo ball. You don't have to ask them to go to it, they go to it. The first checkers are like, oh, look, somebody did a neck shot. I got to switch leads and go across the field. So they really have it in their genes to play polo. It's just like, I guess, a human that you have an athlete that maybe is good at golf and the offspring are, or a singer that's amazing and their offspring are. And I think it's the same, with racing or cutting or polo. It's like you want to continue doing that because they already have a passion for it and it's already in their makeup to do it naturally.
So, how long does it take to train a polo pony once it's born? Like, I had this great conversation with Jennifer Luttrell, who also
Yeah.
has her breeding program out there.
Yeah.
So
And then,
I'm always curious because it was it like 4 to 5 years? Is that right or no? That
yeah, it all depends too. We've got a handful of Jennifer's horses here from a polo stallion that actually used to be here. And they too are like, let's go play polo. They like
Mhm.
it. And we also have Penalty One here, who played for Bob Jarvis.
That's the name, penalty one.
Penalty One, he's the clone of Wembley, and he played for Bob Jarvis this last year in the Open at 5 years old. So for him to be able to play in the U.S. Open for a sponsor at 5, he was already playing high goal polo at 4.
Number one draft pick coming out of high school, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Straight to the NFL. So yeah, you've got those horses that can do it, that can be playing high goal at a very young age. Otherwise, we start them at 3 playing checkers, keep away checkers, and then actual checkers. And Owen's a firm believer that you have to go fast with them. If you dink around with them and go slow, then when you ask them to go fast, they're like, "What?" It's like, why are we going fast? What's going on?
Mhm.
So he always wanted to obviously not go a million miles per hour, but to let them be free and go across the neck and just, extend themselves and be natural and comfortable. And I'm a firm believer too, of like they have to be comfortable at speed. If you're only going slow and in circles, when you take them straight, they don't know what to do with themselves.
So polo ponies really have to be pushed.
Pushed and not pushed. Yeah.
Like most people would think like, oh, horses are stubborn. And I think that's relatable if you're a trail horse. They just don't want to move. They just want to go back to their stall and eat.
Yeah.
Are polo ponies in general just they want to be pushed, they want to play, they want that activity? Would you say they're not stubborn and that they're willing to go above and beyond?
There are definitely the stubborn ones out there. As I think of all the redhead fillies, we always joke about that. They're stubborn. They want their own way. As long as they get their own way, then they're not stubborn.
Yeah.
We find that they do want to play polo. They do want to move on, and it's basically a herd thing. They want to go with the herd. If the herd's going fast, they want to go too. At the same time, if a horse isn't mentally right, then we don't push him. Then we like, okay, well, you can just hang back until you grow up. And it would be like trying to throw a kindergarten kid into college. It's like, okay, you're not ready. But
Hmm.
mentally, if they're ready, we don't feel holding them back is helping them. Holding them back and saying, no, don't do this. That's not beneficial to the horse. But again, at the same time, if they're not ready, then we don't want to push it.
I get often asked this. New spectators and fans that come up to like, oh, do the horses like this? They don't look like they're gonna like it. They're bumping up against. They might get a hit with a mallet or something like that. And I said, I'm like, you're dead wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember, and it was Bob Jarvis's, it was the Valiente team. And I think it was like the US Open final. And I remember being back by their tent with, I think we were still broadcasting on NBC. And I was with the camera crew. And you could see the horses as they were getting to be remounted from the player. They had a pep in their step.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden their legs were kind of just jumping up. You could tell it was like watching an athlete before the start of a 100-yard dash.
Yeah.
You could sense the excitement or the adrenaline going through the horse ready to go out. And once they were remounted, boom, they're out like lightning onto the field.
Yeah.
And these polo horses, they want to play.
Yeah.
They're having fun out there. And then when the drone technology came along, now you can see, they're having fun playing with their friends. I mean, it's
Yeah.
no different than seeing horses sometimes out in the wild.
Yeah.
It really, really is incredible to witness that.
And I always say here, because I never really was rated, because I think I only played in a handful of actual tournaments, like as a zero goal. But the amount of horses that we've had to go through here, I'm like, oh yeah, and my horse is so much better than me. I just stay out of his way,
Hmm.
or stay out of her way. It's like they've got the game and I'm not going to interfere with it. So if they want to turn, of course it's like, no, not right now, but it's like, I'm not going to hold them back and hinder them when their ability is by far better than mine, which is a nice quality to have in a horse. It's
Yeah.
like, my horse is better than me by far. It's only has 4 checkers, but it's way better than me.
Well, and what's crazy is that, polo ponies are so smart.
Yeah.
And I thought one of the scariest things, like when I started playing polo, and it was just this arena, the horse had a mind of its own in a way where like it followed the ball and it ran after the ball. It wasn't me telling him to do it. He just had the natural instinct, just go. Caught me a little off guard. Didn't fall off the saddle at all. But I was just like, all right, we're in this, man. You know where to go. I don't really have to do that much work to some extent. You're going to take me to there.
And I've had horses that, like a lot of times in our practices here, I'll play with Owen, and I've had a couple horses that are like, oh yeah, that guy's going to hit the ball to her, so we're going to go down the field. Like they already are reading the play, which people may say is crazy, but they're already reading the play and going with it. And like I said, I just don't want to interfere and get in the way in any way. But I'm like, yep, well, let's go. But again, that's like generations of polo just bred into them. what little memory is in the DNA from stallion to mare to stallion down the line, it is there. And they're like, I got this. I know what I'm supposed to do and I know where I'm supposed to be on the polo field.
Mhm. From a marketing standpoint, I remember people always tell me like, "Oh, don't put a horse with its ears back," because they're mad. And I'm thinking to myself after talking to you, I'm like, well, isn't that a good thing in a way? It's like
Yeah,
now you can tell
yeah.
people like that horse is pissed off. He's probably not pissed off that he's having to play polo. He's pissed off of
No.
either my rider is taking too much control of me, or I want to win
Yeah.
this game. You know?
I had the best gelding ever, an open meadow horse, and he would flatten his ears when a horse came over to ride him off. He's like, "Oh, I'm so gonna get this," and he'd drop his shoulder, and I swear to God, if I took the ball down the field and missed the goal, he would buck every time. He was like, "You idiot! I got you all the way down the field in front of everybody, and you missed the goal." Every single time I would do that. If I made the goal, we were okay. If I missed the goal,
Dude, fuck you.
oh, I he never got me off, but I would sit back and go, "Here we go. I am so sorry. Forgive me. I'll try better next time." And he would drop his head every time, like, "Oh, God, give me a decent rider on my back, or player on my
Oh
back."
my gosh. Oh, that's got to be horrible to let your horse down like that.
I
Oh, that's got
know.
to kill you.
He was definitely very opinionated. He's like, "Give me a good polo player."
So going back to the breeding, cloning.
Mhm.
Obviously, I think Argentina, they do it, right?
Yeah.
Here in the US, I'm assuming you can't. There's laws against it. Am I wrong to say that?
Yes, definitely 100% wrong. There's of humans, yeah, you can't do that. But the horses, I know a lot of the clones, the Cortotera clones started out here in the US. I think they
Okay.
were started at Texas A&M, went to Allen Meeker's at Crestview, and then went on to Argentina. We were lucky enough to have one. Adolfo left one here for us of the Cortotera clones, and that was B09. And we were lucky enough to see what an amazing, amazing horse she was. There was no training involved. She just, one of those, I got this. I know everything. And I used to laugh when people would say, "Oh, they have memory. The clones that do this, they have memory." And I'm like, they do not. And you would ride one of hers, and well, we only had the one, but you'd ride it, and you're like, you must be remembering, yes, because
Hmm.
you're just so amazing and natural and incredible mouth and everything. So they do cloning here. The quarter horse people do it a lot too, and then as far as the polo horses, they definitely do. And I think Alan Meeker started with Owen's mare Raptor. He took cells from her and started cloning hers. And yes, every single one of them were bronchi like she was.
That might be one of the most ironic names for cloning a horse, raptor. Not to throw some Jurassic Park themes in there, but
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Never really thought of it like that. But yeah, I just always go with the name going, yes, they named her correctly.
yes, they
She,
did. They did. Do you use a lot of technology at all in the sport? And when you mentioned technology, so you genetically, yes, okay.
yeah.
But technology when it comes to training, do you measure performance at all? And it obviously translates into health related things when it comes to a horse's speed, their stamina, things like that to ultimately determine the value of the pony in any sort of way?
Not really.
Okay.
It just is so hard to determine a young horse because personally, I think you can have the horse with the best athletic ability and not have any willingness. So the horse himself determine on how far they want to go almost. You can have speed or you can have agility and you can have a great mouth. But if they don't want to do it, if their heart is not 100% into it, then you're not going to have the best horse you could possibly have.
Yeah, and those things you can't measure. Yeah.
And those things you can't measure. And a lot of times, too, we've seen quite a few horses here that were okay. They were good and they were honest. They were steady. They were what I would say like is more a sponsor type horse that they were just steady Eddie all the time. And they went on, in the Valiente string to really step it up when they were put into faster, harder, higher goal polo.
Hmm.
Those the ones that we call sleepers are just like, oh wow, I didn't know he had it in him. I didn't know she had him in it. It's like, or just the opposite. A couple that are like, wow, this mare's amazing, and she just didn't step up to that next level, and that's always disappointing when it goes that way. But
Hmm.
it's always fun to see the ones that were just the sleepers like come alive when the pressure's on.
Yeah.
That also determines a lot. I had a mare of my own that would play amazing, and then you put her in the tournament, and especially the finals of the tournament, it was like you had a whole different horse that was like, okay, this means it. And I want to win, and I want to be the best on this day.
What's next in your world and breeding? What would you like to see happen, or what are you doing that's breaking barriers in any sort of way?
Again, I've never been one so much to set the goals. I've accomplished a lot that I never even thought about accomplishing. And I never really want to see just clones out there. I fully believe in the clones. I love it. I love the whole concept of it. I don't want to just see homebreds because then you run into what the quarter horses run into of you have one line and one line only. There's always that spectacular horse that's going to come off of the racetrack and put in a whole new bloodline into the breeding, but I would love to see so much more homebreds or people breeding their best or most beloved horse for polo and continuing that willingness and that, the drive that that particular horse has to carry that on.
Hmm. Is that something that's like a big differentiator between the breeding that goes on in Argentina, which is so extensive, versus here in the US, which seems to be like relatively new? You and I talk off recording that Jennifer, there's
Yeah.
very, very few people in the United States that are really making a go of this.
Unfortunately for us, it's more expensive here in the United States. I know Jennifer covered that too. There's so much more land, so much more
Yeah.
availability to the breeding down in Argentina, whereas here it's people are like, what stallions do you have? You have more than one stallion there. So people aren't getting the information out there that they need. That I think mainly the main thing is land. Like we could expand here with horses, but we have no more land. And I think they have probably more accessible land down there. I think the other thing is because it is more expensive,
Yeah.
we are focusing more on quality over quantity. It's like we suggest that you breed only your best or your favorite
Hmm.
horse compared to one horse that just broke down, or one horse that just didn't have it, but you don't know what else to do with it, and maybe in Argentina
Hmm.
they have the facility where you can do that and let's see what happens. Whereas here it's just too expensive to recommend taking a chance on just any old horse because it didn't work out for polo.
Now, you kind of bring up an interesting point. I think, when people think of Argentina, they think of polo, very popular sport. There is massive breeding operations down there. But the fact that, yes, it's Argentina and because of the accessibility, that doesn't necessarily mean quality. Do you think there's a false perception that people automatically think that they're getting a better quality than, let's say, going to you and you can actually get the same, if not better?
I don't want to say yes or no to that. I want to say they may have a wider selection to show people than we do. So your favorite horse may not be this other guy's favorite horse. People used to
Okay.
come and like, oh wow, that horse of Owens is great. I'm like, it's a Fruit Loop, it's a
Hmm.
lunatic. You and I couldn't play it, but he keeps getting best playing pony on this one. So, what suits you may not suit the guy next to you, and they would be able to show more horses to one person and give them a bigger selection. I would love to see that more done. I know in Aiken we try and do that of
Hmm.
somebody calls up and they go, I'm looking to buy this level horse at this price, and I'm coming into town just for the weekend. What do you have? And we'll try and work with people and then call up other people who we know have horses for sale and say, let's get a practice game for this person and let's bring everything you got that is meets his qualifications, and hopefully he'll buy something and want to keep coming back. And that is something that I would like to see more of, and is very helpful. And you know, more horses you can show somebody, there's more chance they're going to like a horse or two horses.
Are you going to start to, or do you already put on the big auctions that they do like in Argentina? I know Alegria just put on theirs over Thanksgiving weekend.
I would love to go to one of those. I would absolutely love it.
I was watching it via Freddie Mannix's Instagram. I was watching it live. I'm like, this is pretty neat.
I know Sunny Hale tried to do that. She tried to have the auction and the polo sale, and Nick Rennekamp used to have the big polo, you know, polo horse sale and stuff. And I don't know why they just didn't do that well. And I think people feel here at least that they can't get a big enough crowd to maybe push the price up on a horse that is worth it. Whereas if we have an auction here, in the United States, it was, I was
Hmm.
seeing through like Nick's that some horses that could have been sold individually were probably sold for a little bit less than half the price that could have gotten maybe down in Florida. Whereas I know in Argentina, there people are excited and like,
Okay.
okay, well,
Yeah.
Allegria's, you know, having a sale. Let's go see what they got and let's go, you know, and then you get I won't call it frenzy, the bidding frenzy, but that's what I assume is probably their, you know, advantage over us having a sale.
Yeah. And it's also centralized. It's in
Yeah.
season. Polo migrates all over the United States. Yeah, so it's one of those things where everyone is not necessarily all top of mind when it comes to that in one
Yeah.
central area. Anyone's season starts differently and where they play differently. Ultimately, at the end of the day, their purchase
Yeah,
consideration or their
exactly.
purchase behavior,
So
yeah, they're in the market for a pony, but not right this time. You're 4 months too early.
I don't know how well it
Yeah,
works here, like you said. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But Beth, this has been a fantastic episode. It really has. I enjoyed a lot learning about your career and your upbringing and just the whole breeding program. I think it's really, really fascinating at the end of the day. It sounds like what you guys are doing is fantastic. You're one of the very few games in town that's really doing this on a bigger stage.
Yes, and that's what I was gonna say. I was like, don't wait till they're 18 or 19 to do it. I get so much pleasure out of these people who have bred a mare that they absolutely love and they can't wait for that baby. And I get photos and phone calls all the time, which just make my day from people who are like, oh, we had a
Yeah,
filly, we had a colt. I love it. It's the best thing. My kids are, you know, all over it. It's sleeping in the house. It's, you know, jumping in the car and coming with us. You know, they just, I love that as much as seeing BO9 get all the awards and the horses. You know, we've had quite a few horses go down to Argentina and play the Open from here and you know the U.S. Open and the Argentine Open, and it's amazing to watch them play and be adult horses, and it's just as amazing to get that phone call from the owner. And I even
yeah.
had somebody that bred with us 14 years ago that just said, "Look, we got two Best Flying Pony awards this week for this horse, and it's amazing." And that just makes me just as happy as, you know, horses getting Best Flying Pony in the Opens.
They are the heart and soul of this sport. They really are. And I really appreciate, we did talk a little bit about, humanizing polo ponies to an extent. And I think that's a really, really important thing to showcase. I think often people's perception and their interactions with horses, majority is vastly different than us in the polo world.
Yeah.
I think that that's a very, very beautiful thing about our sport. So hopefully that people who walk away from this podcast and listening to it look at horses much differently. So,
Thank you.
but Beth, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really enjoyed it. I wish you all the success in the world down in South Carolina. And I do think you're going to be forced to pick your football team.
I'll go with the Panthers, okay? I can be neutral and general by going with the Panthers and just go for the big boys and leave the college for the locals. So,
Well, hopefully our paths will cross if you're going to be down in Florida come the spring and winter.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me on here. And it was a lot of fun talking to you, too, by the way.
Thank you, Beth. No, absolutely. And have a wonderful holiday.
Okay, you too.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. We want to express our gratitude to our amazing sponsor, Hive 2.0, for making this season's podcast possible. Hive 2.0 is on a mission to provide an authentic drink experience, offering unique and delicious flavors of hard honey and premium non-alcoholic beverages. It's all about showcasing the quality and passion of the bees' work from hive to hand. Hive 2.0 believes in spreading the joy that honeybees create with every sip, bringing together their life's work with uncharted flavor profiles and the pure aromas of honey. It's a one-of-a-kind drinking experience that you won't find anywhere else. As a special thank you for tuning into this episode of Outside the Boards, Hive 2.0 is thrilled to offer our listeners an exclusive online discount and free shipping on all 4-packs. Just use the discount code OTBPOLO24 in all capital letters when checking out. Head over to hardhoney.com to explore more about the brand's products and mission. Don't miss out on the chance to enhance your drink experience with Hive 2.0's unique creations. Purchase your 4-pack today. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay refreshed, stay curious, and remember to make every sip count with Hive 2.0. Until next time, take care and hope to see you on the polo field. That was a great episode. What is the one thing you learned from today's conversation? If this episode had an impact on you in some way, then I encourage you to visit and subscribe to our website at outsidetheboards.com for more episodes and interviews with incredible guests. Thanks for stopping by, my friends, and hope to see you on the polo field.